Hi, today's big news comes from Disneyland, which finally gave us an official closing date for Mickey's Toontown. Now, don't worry, this isn't a permanent closing, but this is going to be down for about a year or so as they work to, as they say, reimagine the land in preparation of the opening for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is coming in 2023. And just so you know, saying Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is the hardest thing in the world for me to say. So I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But anyway, so March 8th, that's going to be the final day of operation for Mickey's Toontown before it goes down for its big year-long refurb. Honestly, Disneyland has been rebuilding a lot of its lands lately. We told you before the pandemic, before Galaxy's Edge opened, about that Project Stardust that Disneyland had. That was really their attempt to go through land by land and make improvements at Disneyland Park in preparation for Galaxy's Edge opening. Lots of things like, just changing curb cuts, planters, and sidewalks and things to kind of help the guest flow go better through the park, which was really at, if not beyond, capacity at the point where Galaxy's Edge opened in 2019. Now, obviously today with advanced reservations, Disneyland's got a little bit more room to play with, if you will. But Disneyland made a lot of really nice changes to the park. I mean, that space around Dumbo was just absolutely terrible before, but they set it back a little bit. You created a little bit more space around there. Guests flow through, and it's just a more pleasant place to be. The one land that they really didn't do anything with was Toontown. And now we see what they're going to do with Toontown. They're going to be really reimagining a lot of it, trying to create a little bit more of a natural space, which means more grass, less asphalt, creating some interactive elements with reimagined fountain and what they're calling Walt's Wishing Tree, which is basically going to be another play area. They're still going to have Donald's boat and Goofy's house, but they're going to be redesigned as well. Beyond Toontown, the land that I think got the least changes in Project Stardust was Tomorrowland, which has been the Achilles heel for Disneyland and its designers ever since it's opened. Obviously, Tomorrow has this nasty habit of coming today, so you're constantly having to change and refresh that land in order to keep it to be Tomorrowland. But with Disney's increased focusing on IP, that creates an additional problem for the company because if you really think about it, I'm like, what IPs could Disney bring into Tomorrowland? You really think about it, there aren't that many. And that's an issue that I'd really like to dive into today. Perhaps some of you might want to jump into the comments and talk about or share this with your friends on social media and add your own comments to this. Where are the Tomorrowland franchises for the Walt Disney Company? Obviously, the first one that comes to mind, everyone, it's right there in Tomorrowland at Disneyland, Star Wars, with the original Star Tours. It's now Star Tours, The Adventures Continue, but still, that original ride from the 1980s. Now, obviously, the home for Star Wars has moved at the Disneyland Resort. It's now at Galaxy's Edge. And technically, Star Wars was never a Tomorrowland franchise anyway. I mean, sure, it had that science fiction veneer that is so commonly associated with Tomorrowland. But may I remind you that the first words on screen for a Star Wars movie are "a long time ago." This is Yesterdayland, folks, not Tomorrowland. What else are you going to put in Tomorrowland? Let's look at Disney franchises. I mean, in terms of just strictly Disney animation, you have to go back to like Treasure Planet before there was anything really sci-fi coming out of Disney animation. Some of the things that might kind of fit into that vibe are more alternate realities, such as Wreck-It Ralph or Zootopia. Really going into traditional science fiction, you're talking about something like Wall-E from Pixar. But that's a little dystopian, I think, for a theme park. I mean, obviously you can put a little, decoration here and there. But really the big one that they've got is the Buzz Lightyear half of the Toy Story franchise. Obviously, we've got that already there with Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters and whatever else Buzz Lightyear is called at various parks around the world. But maybe the new Lightyear movie will bring in some things. Obviously, they're going to be selling a little cat doll as a result. If you've seen the trailer, you know. But really, it's tough. But why is it? Why are there so few Tomorrowland compatible franchises in Disney's IP roster right now? Um, Maybe you could put superheroes in there, and they've done that in Hong Kong, but that's not really future. I mean, the MCU right now is set at least a couple years into the future, but I think superheroes are something distinct from that. But I think this tells us a lot about kind of where we are as a society right now. When you think about when Disneyland opened in the mid 1950s, 1955, there was a lot of enthusiasm about tomorrow. Tomorrow was exciting. It was that great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Science was something that was universally, embraced. People were so optimistic about what the future could bring. It's very different today. I don't think there's nearly as much optimism about the future. It's quite pessimistic. I mean, things set in the future are almost universally dystopian franchises at this point. We're looking at global warming. We're looking at the rise of fascism, even here in the United States. We're looking at a really bleak economic future for a lot of people. Back in the 1950s, people had pensions and unions and job security and affordable housing, cheap health care that was pretty good and getting better by the moment. And people were excited about vaccines instead of protesting them. And the future was something that people were really looking forward to. Of course, you'd want to spend time in Tomorrowland. Today, not so much. That creates an entertainment problem for the Walt Disney Company because no one's really creating those optimistic tomorrow franchises that would be a natural fit for the Walt Disney Company to put into Tomorrowland. I think it's interesting to consider, what's been happening at the Disneyland Resort with that Project Stardust that remade so much of most of the lands around Disneyland, even if you don't consciously notice it on a visit to Disneyland. I think even subconsciously you might feel how things were getting a little bit easier to get around as opposed to the absolutely horrible way things were back in 2018 when there were so many pinch points and awful traffic jams throughout that park. And then to put that in the context of the transition over to Disneyland Forward and Disneyland's attempt to get more land use flexibility that allows them to create a whole bunch of new attractions that could include maybe some of the things that are going into Tokyo Disney Sea, Hong Kong Disneyland, the Walt Disney World Resort, bringing them to Disneyland in California, and even supplementing that with some new original attractions to the West Coast. But yeah, so that's where the context is right now. But I think looking at the IP that Disney has to play with, because they're going to play with IP. The only thing that I see that's really the park's original that they seem to be having any interest in investing in at this point is Society of Explorers and Adventurers, which thrills me. I love the SEA franchise, and I really hope that they do something with it. Particularly, I hope this Disney Plus series comes through and that becomes the multimedia franchise that it really needs to be if it's going to have a strong future in the theme parks. But the fact that it came from the theme parks is wonderful for me. But again, looking at everything, just the fact that the public doesn't seem to be in the mood for Tomorrowland right now is something that Disney really needs to consider as it's looking at the future of its Tomorrowland, not just at Disneyland, but other places around the world. It is a concept that's been shelved in a few places. It became Discoveryland over in Paris. It's kind of mutating into Avengers Campus in Hong Kong. What can Disney do with Tomorrowland? I think at this point, if people don't really want to celebrate tomorrow, that's a tough IP for Disney to try and play with within its parks. Anyway, some perspective and some things to think about. In the meantime, I hope you will check out our article on Theme Park Insider today about the changes coming to Mickey's Toontown at Disneyland, and keep following us for more daily news and coverage and opinion and perspective on everything that's happening in the theme park industry and themed entertainment worldwide. Thanks for watching.